Welcome back to the Downcourt Podcast. I'm your host, Drew. In today's episode, we are getting into Cunningham's season-ending injury, along with her getting fined for a third time by the WNBA. We are also going to be talking Valkyrie potentially getting pushed out of their home arena due to scheduling conflicts, the Sparks playoff push after winning a close one against the Wings, and the WNBA breaking their attendance record. So let's go ahead and get started. So Cunningham of the Indiana Fever has officially been listed out for the rest of the season with a MCL injury. Hopefully she will be back in time for next season. This actually raises a lot of questions for the Fever themselves, as multiple guards have now sustained season-ending injuries. Caitlin Clark has been dealing with injuries all season, and they're currently in a playoff position. So the main question I see going around is, should Caitlin Clark play again this season? And I guess my answer to that is, if she is 100% healthy, I don't see a reason why she should sit out. They don't have great odds in winning a playoff series, but that experience for her is invaluable. To be able to go out there with her, Aaliyah Boston, Lexi Hull, they still have some pieces left that aren't injured, even though a lot of them are. And I'm not saying that they're going to go out there to win, but if Caitlin is 100% healthy, and that's the key, 100% healthy, I think she should go out there, get a little bit of playoff experience under her belt, come back next year with a healthier roster, and try to have a better season as a team. But if she is still battling injuries, if she is not 100%, I have no problem with them sitting her for the rest of the season. You're not playing to win a championship this year, and it's felt like that for a while now since Caitlin's been banged up. And this season's been weird for the Fever, where it feels like every time they get some momentum going, another injury happens, and then they need to find another role player to fill in the gap, and then that person gets injured. So it's been an up and down year for the Fever. It's been a roller coaster. Props to them for even getting to this spot where they can be potentially in the playoffs. But you need to play this game where what you have to do what's best for your superstar now. Is it best for her to get a little bit of playoff experience and feel that environment and help with her development? Or is it best for her to just call it a season, get right in this offseason, and come back stronger next year? That's going to be for the Fever's medical team to decide and to figure out whether she is healthy or not. But the fact that she hasn't even been considering playing these last couple games, I think is telling us that the Fever don't plan to play her anytime soon. The last update, which is August 20th, Wednesday, the day I'm recording this, the Fever coach Stephanie White said that Caitlin Clark, her recovery remains status quo until she can get into practice, and until you guys see her in practice, it's really status quo, same as we have been. So yeah, the Fever are going to hold her out until she's 100% completely ready, which is fine. They also honestly do not have the healthy and active roster right now to compete for a title shot, and so why would you potentially damage your superstar going into next season? Let's just go into the offseason. The Fever fought hard this season. It's something they should be proud of, but just Caitlin was never able to be at 100% for most of the year and really build off any momentum they were able to get. So a clean slate would be better for them this offseason. Now, Sophie Cunningham did come out and say that she didn't think Bria Hartley intentionally tried to injure her, and I know that was a point of contention for some fans. That's at least one positive from the story. Another thing going on is Cunningham starting her podcast a few weeks ago, and this is already the third time she's gotten fined for talking about the WNBA officiating. And I know there's been people in my comments and comments everywhere that are not happy with the officiating that is going on this season. And it's something I'm sure the WNBA, the leaders of the WNBA are aware of, and the players are aware of. And Sophie Cunningham is one of the most vocal about it. Here is her on her podcast talking about getting fined for a third time for talking about officiating surrounding Paige Bueckers.
I'm officially 3 for 3 on being fined by the WNBA.
Holy shit. For this? For the pod? Again?
They didn't like my comments on Paige Bueckers.
No way.
I didn't even say anything bad.
On the quick whistle?
Yeah. We know she's a good rookie and she's going to get some whistles, but to get the treatment she got last night was crazy.
It's
insane.
So I'd actually like to hear from you in the comments. Do you think Paige gets a different whistle from, say, Caitlin Clark or a Sophie Cunningham? Do you think she gets a more favorable whistle like Sophie is saying? Which I think it's interesting that Sophie's bringing up Paige because there is a topic of discussion where Caitlin Clark and Sophie Cunningham, and I said it on the last episode, do not get protected well enough by the officiating. And what I mean by that is other teams are allowed to be very physical with them, and they will not call fouls early on in games to establish the line of how physical they can be. And I said it where NBA, they treat their superstars like superstars. They will protect them with the officiating. NFL, they will protect their quarterbacks because they want them on the field every game because that is their best product to fans. So I do think, as we saw at last season and this season, Kaylin does not get the most favorable whistle, and especially with her teammate Sophie Cunningham now going back and forth with the WNBA, and her being a physical player herself has not gotten a favorable whistle. And then you look at Paige, who has, I think, really been embraced by the WNBA as a league and its players more so than Caitlin was as a rookie. But it's really hard to judge when you have Caitlin, who's such a polarizing player, and I think the game of basketball is just so hard to judge. But moral of the story, I think the problem that is going on here is the officiating is not consistent. Not even just with players, just game to game. I hope we don't see this problem really coming up in the playoffs that much, because I know this is what happened last season in the finals. So I hope the playoffs aren't kind of tainted by bad officiating, and the teams are able to maneuver through the bad officiating or the inconsistent officiating. But I really want you all to comment. Do you think Paige is getting a better whistle than Kaylin and Sophie? Or do you think it's an unfair criticism? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Next, I wanted to talk about the Golden State Valkyrie, because they have put themselves in position to be potentially the first WNBA expansion team to make the playoffs. But with that comes a situation where I don't think that they were thinking they would make the playoffs, so they scheduled other things in place of that in Chase Center, where the Valkyrie play, where the Warriors play. So here is an article by SF Gate talking about the situation, and they're quoting a tweet from Tim Kawakami saying how the Valkyrie could potentially play home playoff games in Oakland or San Jose at the SAP Center. And so I really wanted to talk about this home field advantage that the Valkyrie have been able to have in Ballhalla, in Chase Center. And it's really, I think, helped the team at times. Momentum is a huge thing in the game of basketball. And when you're able to have a packed house and a crowd cheering every time you make a steal or score the basket, it really helps the team stay motivated. And so when I first saw the headline thinking they would get pushed out of their home arena for a potential playoff game, I was immediately thinking like, okay, well, this is a disadvantage for them. But when I saw the alternatives in Oakland or San Jose, I quickly flipped my thinking and thought, okay, this is actually very interesting for the Bay Area. They have shown that they will come out and support this team, and making this a news story this early and notifying the fan base, notifying the locals, I think is partly strategic for the Valkyrie by getting the word out and letting fans know, if we get moved out of this arena for playoffs, you have to come support us in San Jose. You have to come support us in Oakland. Be prepared for that trip. And as someone who lived in the Bay Area for 8 or 9 years and knowing the Bay Area fans, they would definitely travel well to Oakland, travel well to San Jose. I think Oakland would be an interesting one because you had where the Warriors just left there a few years ago, and now there's no sports team. So it'll be exciting for a lot of fans in East Bay to go, and easy commute from San Francisco. On the other hand, San Jose has plenty of sports teams right now. I've been to the SAP Center multiple times. It's a really nice arena. I would love to go to a Valkyrie game in San Jose. So both locations are not a difficult travel for the Bay Area. I think if this happened in a different city with a smaller market, it would be a bigger issue, but it's not like they were considering going to, say, Stanford or to like a smaller school like Long Beach or something crazy like that. They're literally pushing them down the street And I think it adds a little more intrigue for fan interest to say, hey, we need you guys all to show out because we're not playing in our home base. We have to move next door. And that I think that could rally a crowd a bit. But let me know, would you rather see them play in Oakland or San Jose if they can't play in Ballhalla? Next, I want to talk about the Los Angeles Sparks, the team I'm most high on coming into the playoffs outside of the Lynx to potentially make a run into the finals is the Los Angeles Sparks. They're currently fighting to be the 8th seed. They just played a amazing game against the Dallas Wings where Paige Bueckers scored 44 points, only to have that victory taken away from her in the last second from a buzzer beater by Kelsey Plum. Now, this game was so exciting. It was a tie game from the last 2.5 minutes to the final minute. The Wings got up by 1 point from a technical foul. The Sparks were able to play defense and get that final shot from Kelsey Plum to win it. And now looking at the landscape of the playoffs, let me just pull up the standings. So this is how the bottom of the standings look right now. The Fever still in the 6th spot with 19 wins. The Valkyrie in the 7th spot with 18. The Storm hanging on to the 8th spot with 18 wins as well. And then you have the Sparks and the Mystics. Mystics starting to fall behind and the Sparks trying to put together that late season push. Now, here's the few scenarios that could possibly happen. A lot of people I've seen have written off the Fever because of the amount of injuries. Yes, they had the comeback win against the Sun, but they were down by 20 plus points in that game to one of the worst teams in the league. So it's not unrealistic to see them fall all the way from 6 to 9, especially now that Sparks have went from 3 games back to 2 games back. So that would leave the Valkyrie moving up to the 6th seed, while the Storm and the Sparks stay in that 7th and 8th seed, and the Fever drop down to 9th. Now, here's the Valkyrie schedule for the rest of the season. They have the Mercury on Friday, which will be a tough game, but then they have the next 4 of their 5 games are very winnable. They have the Wings twice, they have the Mystics, and they have the Fever. Now, if they can win 3 of those games, that could potentially be enough to put them into the playoffs and secure their spot. They also have what are essentially meaningless games for the Lynx at the end of the year, which is the best time you want to play them right now, as I'm sure the Lynx will probably want to rest their players as much as possible in that final week of games. So they could potentially have an easy game there against the Lynx bottom half of the roster. And then you have the Storm, who have been struggling as of late. So looking at the Storms and what they have left, they also have the Wings, they also have the Mystics, they also have the Fever, and then they play the Sky. But what's key for the Storm here at the end is they're going to play the Sparks and the Valkyrie. So those 2 games at the end of the season are really going to determine whether the Storm make the playoffs or not. And now looking at the Sparks end of the season, the Sparks probably have, out of the 3 teams I just talked about, the toughest path to get to the playoffs still, because they play the Mercury, they're going to play the Storm, they play the Dream twice, they play the Mercury again, and they end the season with the Aces. And all of those teams are going to be jockeying for playoff position. So the final game of the season, it's not like the Aces are going to be packing in and just trying to rest players. They are going to want to win that game. So the Sparks right now do have a tough road ahead of them, but I also think that between the Storm, Valkyrie, and Fever, they are the healthiest team. They are the most well put together team currently with their active players, and they are playing really good basketball. So despite the tough road ahead, I am actually thinking that the Sparks will sneak into the playoffs. Now, the final story I want to talk about today is the WNBA actually breaking the regular season attendance record before the season's even over. So really good to see the league is continuing to grow in popularity. It's showing people who try to say it can never be profitable, nobody watches. It's showing that there are real numbers to the legitimacy of this league and that it continues to get better and better every year. The valuation of the teams continue to grow every season. Expansion is getting closer. More fans will be attending. Fan bases will grow with these newer cities. So the sky is the limit for this league. And it's good to see that the hard work that the players are putting in growing this league is actually paying off with numbers. I just want to leave this episode on this note where I looked at 2 different articles about this record being broken. It was interesting to see which angle the articles took. And so this one from Yahoo Sports talks about attendance record being broken, but it says the Golden State Valkyries helped drive growth, which, yes, they did. They were sellout every night. They were one of the most popular teams in the league, and they've been one of the best stories of the season all year. But then I think it's interesting when you look at, let's say, Bleacher Report, their headline, regular season attendance record, Caitlin Clark's fever draws most fans. And both things can be true, but I just think it's interesting on the coverage of what these media outlets are deciding to cover. And it gets into an issue that I think the WNBA has had where their marketing is just not good. They haven't really been able to put together a united front on their messaging and on their marketing and really put the emphasis of the league on the players that they should be pushing, the superstars that they should be pushing. And I understand the Valkyrie and Caitlin Clark are two of the biggest stories in the WNBA, but I think that the WNBA just in itself has not done a great job of highlighting the other teams or the other players. And it's part of why I started this podcast, is where I want to talk about Sanaya Rivers on the Connecticut Sun. I want to talk about the Liberty. I want to talk about the Storm and one of my favorite players, Gabby Williams. Like, there are other teams doing great things, and I think the WNBA media is somewhat failing at highlighting those great things from around the league. And then it somewhat alienates outsiders or people who just haven't given the league a chance because all they see is Caitlin Clark, all they see is Angel Reese, and they think like, okay, that's the only reason why the WNBA exists is Caitlin Clark or Angel. So I don't have a problem with the headlines about the WNBA breaking the attendance record, focusing on Caitlin Clark, because I get it. The vast majority of people who don't watch the league are going to see that and want to read it. But I think the media should do a better job of highlighting the other players who are helping build up this league and helping break that record. And so that's what we want to do here on this podcast. So if you want to see more of that, please like, comment, subscribe. We are on TikTok, YouTube, Instagram, all that social media. Audio versions of the podcast are on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Please go to the YouTube, check out the full episodes, and thanks for listening. Peace.